This video idea was submitted to me back in April via Twitter by a subscriber named Tony. He's one of my OG subscribers who's been there since I was at like 100 subs. If you're watching this, Tony, thanks for being a part of my YouTube journey. If anyone else wants to submit video ideas to me, hit me up on Twitter, or even better, send me an email at DuskTillShawn9@gmail.com. You can copy and paste it from the description box down below to make it a little easier for you. Email is the best way to reach me as I am rarely on Twitter. Real Monsters is another show made by the creators of Rugrats, Klasky Csupo. This one revolved around three monsters, Ickus, Crumb, and Oblina, who attend a monster school under the city dump where they learn the art of scaring humans. Other than the three main protagonists, my favorite character would have to be the Gromble, who is the headmaster of the monster school. He starts off as the main antagonist initially, but later on in the series becomes more of an anti-hero. His character design is just so bizarre and obscure, and I love it. All in all, the show is criminally underrated in my opinion. It was successful enough to have gotten 4 seasons and ran for 3 years, from 1994 to 1997, but it never got as much widespread recognition as shows like Rugrats or SpongeBob, which is understandable to a degree. It's one of those shows where, due to its obscure nature, it was kind of an outlier Nicktoon from the start, but it still had a good cult-size following. I see it as one of those shows where, if you know, you know. That's why today, on our nostalgic walk down memory lane, we are looking at my top 5 most iconic episodes of Real Monsters. As always, if I miss your favorite episode, or if there's an episode you think should have been included, leave me a comment down below and let me know. I always watch the comments so I can include your favorite episodes when I make part 2 of this video. Now, let's get right into it. Number 5. The Lips Have It. This episode begins with a simple country girl arriving in the big city for the first time, excited to pursue her new career as a model. We see her talking to a modeling agent who is an absolute jerk to her, saying she isn't special enough to be one of his models.
You non-special Mirka Ravakas others, I titter at you.
Next, she walks through the city park where we see a hot dog stand conducting business, but when the vendor reaches in for a hot dog, he grabs Oblina and she scares the hell out of them. Notice how one of the scariest features of Oblina happens to be her lips. That's a very important detail for this episode. They get chased out of the park by a big scary dog, and as they're escaping down into the sewer, Oblina's lips get ripped off and they go flying away, leaving Oblina mouthless and unable to speak. We cut to the aspiring model sitting in the park, crying, when Oblina's lips fall out of the sky and right into her lap. She glues them onto her face and goes back to talk to the jerk modeling agent.
You shall be a supermodel. I kiss your foot.
He decides to dub her Lulu, the girl with the really big lips. Meanwhile, the monsters are on the hunt for Oblina's lips. Ickus decides to start by giving Oblina a pair of replacement lips, which she absolutely hates.
No, you minis, I cannot wear this.
All of the nasty things that Oblina says seems like they're coming out of Lulu's mouth, which leaves the modeling agent impressed as he believes that Lulu is already behaving like a superstar.
Oh, you saucy, hot-tempered supermodel.
Oblina gets the idea to go out late at night and search for her lips, which she has to convey to her friends in the form of charades. They go out into the night and Oblina yells as loud as she can as they follow the sound of her mouth off in the distance. All the while, it seems like Lulu is just laying in bed screaming in the middle of the night, which for some reason had me straight up cackling with laughter. Oblina keeps yelling about her lips, and as a result, the modeling agent takes Lulu to another room so they can guard her precious lips. Oblina uses charades again to tell her friends that she has a plan to get her lips back, but they have to wait until morning. The next morning, at Lulu's modeling debut, when asked to show off her superstar attitude, Oblina stays silent.
What kind of attitude is that?
What is she, from Iowa?
Then, when no one is expecting it, Oblina uses her terrifying lips to scare everyone. Then, when Lulu is all alone, Oblina rips the lips off of her face and Lulu is sent packing back to Ortonville, Iowa. With Oblina's lips back, all is back to normal, except since she hasn't been able to talk all day, now she just can't stop talking.
It was hard. It was unbearable. It was
the happiest day of my life.
Oh, Icky, you know you should try to work on your attitude. And I know just how you should do it.
Number 4, spontaneously combustible. This episode begins with Ickis, Crumb, and Oblina sitting in the sewer fishing for trash when Ickis basically vomits in Crumb's face.
You might want to get that checked.
What for? It's probably just something I ate.
Later in class, the Gromble tasks Ickis with collecting everyone's tests that they just finished. Ickis then accidentally burns all these tests to ash with a massive fire burp. The Gromble takes Ickis to the nurse, who gives him a checkup. We then find out that Ickis is spontaneously combustible.
This is not good. You're spontaneously combustible.
Spintopiously custardable?
Spontaneously combustible.
The nurse contradicts himself by saying that it'll only last a week, but also says that Ickis' next burp could be his last. A little fly monster overheard what the nurse said and starts spreading the news to everyone in school, starting with the kid that has 6 ears, of course. Ickis later goes to class, and everyone in class is terrified of him, fearing that he could blow up at any minute. The Gromble gives everyone a lesson about 3 important monsters in monster history, all of which were spontaneously combustible.
And nobody became combustible just by sitting next to them. Back in your seats!
Later, in the middle of the night, there's a knock at their dorm room door, and Crumb's dad, Horvath, shows up, and I just love how they greet each other here.
Dad? Hello there, Lena. Hello, Ickis. How's your dad? Great to hear it.
He tells Crumb to pack his things because he needs him at home to help harvest mold, even though he already harvested it last week. Crumb offers for Ickis to come with, but Horvath is quick to say that Ickis doesn't want to come, as they leave in a hurry. Next thing you know, every monster is packing their bags and leaving, except for Oblina, of course, so Ickis decides that he's gonna leave so everyone else can stay. The next day in class, the Gromble is pissed that everyone drove Ickis away. We learn that the rumor of Ickis blowing up everyone started from the fly monster who was misinformed. The Gromble explains that no one was in danger and they don't need to be afraid.
Do you know what we call someone who's scared of something he doesn't understand?
Humans.
So is that what you want to act like? A bunch of humans?
Everyone ends up going to find Ickis, who is all alone in the sewer, and they explain that they all want Ickis to come home. 5 days later, Ickis goes to the nurse to find out that he is healthy and doesn't need to worry about being spontaneously combustible anymore. Ickis and his friends are happy that everything has gone back to normal. This episode is a real nice lesson on not fearing that which you don't understand.
Let us go tell everybody.
Yeah, come on, buddy. Let's party.
No. I got a better idea. I got one! Yes, come on.
Number 3. Monsters, get real. This episode begins on a dark, stormy night with a kid in bed reading monster comics when he's supposed to be sleeping.
Monsters, get real.
Ickis sits under his bed, preparing to scare this kid, but Ickis himself ends up getting startled and runs out of the room, leaving this kid just completely confused. Ickis runs back to school, terrified that the Gromble is going to tear him a new one for botching this scare.
Nauseating, puke-spouting, slime-mongering, toe jam-eating, foul-smelling, worm-ridden, wart-covered, pus-oozing, pimples on the butt of creation I've ever seen. This class is the grungiest!
Oh, excuse me, sir. My nose is running.
Enough! Where was I?
We then see why Ickis is terrified. This assignment was to scare a human for the first time, and when they get back to class, they get hooked up to a machine that shows the class a little clip of how the scare went. We see Crumb go first as he scares the daylights out of a few teenagers kissing in a car by the beach. They are so terrified that one of them goes off running on water like Jesus Christ himself. The Gromble forces Ickis to go next, and as we recount Ickis' awful attempt at scaring this kid, we see that Ickis left his monster manual behind, which is the worst possible thing a monster could ever do. The Gromble says if Ickis doesn't get it back, then he'll be tortured by the Snorch. Back in their dorm, Ickis is having a really tough debate with himself about whether or not he can get his monster manual back, face the kid, or face the Snorch. Oblina is kind enough to share examples of how he could easily scare this kid.
You could do this. Or this. Or maybe this.
They head out together to support Ickis while he scares the pants off of this kid. On the way there, they meet Crumb's Uncle Grungy in the sewer, who's kind enough to give them directions to the kid's house. They finally make it and find that the kid has a few friends over, and they're all wreaking complete havoc in his room. Crumb ends up going out to snag the book, but he gets caught by one of the kids.
Sure stinks.
Things get even more hectic as Oblina gets caught in the room too, and one of the kids uses her as a golf club to hit Crumb's rogue eye that flies into where the sun don't shine. Fed up with all the madness, Ickis finally springs into action and scares the pants out of all three of the kids, letting out one deep guttural gurgling roar that sends them all running. With the scare assignment completed and the book retrieved, the monsters head home where they reflect on what a good job Ickis did, and Ickis claims he won't let the manual out of his sight.
In fact, I'm gonna read a chapter or two right now. Arf, 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 huh? Sergeant Mike, police dog? Oh, guys, we got the wrong book.
Number 2. Curse of the Crumb. This episode begins with Oblina and Ickis at a carnival scaring the heck out of the guests there. Meanwhile, Crumb is at a farm, scaring a pig by laying in the smelly slop that it's feasting upon. Back at the carnival, the three friends see the introduction to Wendell, the world's smelliest man, which prompts Crumb to challenge Wendell.
He is rather impressive for a human.
You can't tell mold by its fuzz.
He wants trouble. He's gonna get it.
All of the flies that were attracted to Wendell now start following Crumb. He even teaches them a new trick using his eyeballs. Next, the clock strikes midnight and fireworks start blasting off as Ickis and Oblina wish Crumb a happy birthday. At that exact moment, all of a sudden, all of the flies go away, leaving Crumb confused. Ickis and Oblina start to head home as Crumb goes back to Wendell's tent. The flies are all back on Wendell, and as Crumb tries to lure them back, they don't seem to care for him at all anymore. Back at home, Oblina takes note on the fact that Crumb somehow lost his stench, and they say they're going to cover for him so he doesn't have to go to class, fearing the idea of being made fun of for his lack of BO.
I've always had BO. What am I gonna do?
Instead, Crumb decides to come to class just a little late. Unfortunately for him though, the Gromble ends up humiliating him in front of everyone.
What is the meaning of this?
Brought my own lunch? How'd those get there?
Implants! I smell everything, Crumb. Everything but you!
I lost my odor.
The Gromble then kicks Crumb out of class due to the fact that he relies heavily on his stench for his scaring. Crumb leaves a note behind for Ickis and Oblina explaining that he's going home because he is nothing without his stench. Back at home, Crumb's dad explains the curse of the Crumb to him, a curse that causes one to lose their stench. It normally skips a generation, but unfortunately both Crumb and his dad are afflicted by it.
But you've always been a pretty smelly guy. Stink bugs and sardines, son. I tried that on the Gromble, and he caught me.
Crumb goes off to find a new profession, as his dad assures him that he will be proud of Crumb no matter what happens. We then see Crumb working as a crossing guard, and Ickis and Oblina show up to help him figure out a way to become more scary, so the Gromble will let him back in school. Crumb tries to do an Ickis-style scare, but the kids that he's trying to scare just think he's funny. He then gets some pointers from Oblina.
Now, all you have to do is just reach way down inside yourself and see what you come up with. See? It is simple.
After failing to do it her way, he tries one last-ditch effort to scare a couple in the Tunnel of Love. He successfully finds his own way of scaring, which works really well on the couple and leaves Crumb feeling a new burst of confidence. And luckily, his newfound confidence triggered a whole new and stronger stench to start bursting out of his body. A stench so foul that it peels the paint off of walls and collapses the entire carnival.
Your son worked hard. He never gave up, and his reward is a stench that brings tears to my eyes.
I could have done that.
Oh, please, you were hopeless.
Nothing personal.
Number 1. The Switching Hour. In my opinion, the most iconic episode would have to be the first episode of the entire series. The episode begins with a little kid taking out the trash when he sees Ickis in their trash can feasting on some garbage. Ickis scares the kid by burping, and then he scurries off into the night. At school the next day, we see the gruesome scene of a monster writing "The Grumble bites" on his hand, then ripping off the skin to pass it around like it's a note.
Lovely sentiment, Ickis, and I do too.
The Grumble says that since they all did so poorly on their midterms, they won't be allowed to go out on Halloween, which they've all been looking forward to. Those who do will be nabbed by the Snorch and taken to the Grumble for one of 3 punishments.
I'll handle the discipline with one of 3 choices. Something bad, something really bad, or you don't want to know.
We then cut back to that kid from the opening scene who's getting ready to go trick-or-treating with his older brother who really doesn't want to take him out. We also see that the kid is dressed up like Ickis for his costume. Back at Monster Academy, every single student, nerds included, are planning on sneaking out for Halloween, but Ickis is kind of apprehensive.
I don't think I'll be able to go. I had some bad pencils for lunch and they're sitting in my stomach like lead.
Come on, Ickis, don't start this again.
They end up sneaking out and attempting to scare some kids, but the kids are unfazed, thinking that they're just kids in costume and not monsters. The monsters end up going trick-or-treating, trying to mimic the other kids, and they end up crashing a party as well. They scare everyone at the party and they all run out of the house and scatter. In the commotion, we see the older brother of the little boy who's dressed as Ickis throwing toilet paper and eggs at everyone who's scattering. During the madness, Ickis and the little boy who's dressed up as him end up trading places by mistake.
Those kids were vicious. I have half a mind to go back there and give them some of this.
Crumb and Oblina should have known something was up when Oblina accidentally scared the little boy into fainting. They end up carrying his unconscious body back home. Meanwhile, the real Ickis gets dragged to a party with the older brother and his friends. Ickis ends up being the life of the party and everyone loves him. Back at Monster Academy, the little boy wakes up and Crumb and Oblina immediately realize they've made a mistake and that they need to return the boy and find Ickis, but before they can get out, the Grumble catches them and forces them back into their dorm.
Now get back inside before I send Snorch to tuck you in!
The poor kid even has to survive through an entire class at Monster Academy before they have a chance to get him back home. Meanwhile, poor Ickis is terrified and stuck at this kid's house. Eventually, Oblina and Crumb end up returning the kid home, who promises not to tell anyone where he's been, and they find Ickis and take him home, but not before Ickis does the kid a favor of scaring the hell out of his older brother. Back at school, the Grumble, who is sure some people snuck out on Halloween, confronts the class with the knowledge that Ickis, Crumb, and Oblina were the only monsters who didn't chicken out and actually snuck out. He does deliver them some praise.
Unlike the rest of you slobbering panty wastes, these students acted like real monsters. They went out on Halloween.
Though he does claim that they'll be the future leaders of tomorrow, he still feels the need to punish them for disobeying his rules.
What's behind door number 3 again?
What do you think of All Real Monsters? Do you agree with my take that it's criminally underrated? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like so that more people can see it, and subscribe for more awesome videos just like this one. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.